And I do have the first video already up on YouTube. I'll show you all where it is probably tomorrow. But again, right, they can't establish cause and effect, so the goal of this study would be to make a what? Well, that'd be the type of study, but what's the goal? Remember, an experiment is trying to establish cause and effect. Surveys and observational studies are trying to make a prediction about the population, right? That's the difference. They can't establish cause and effect, but they could say, hey, we see this trend here. We believe this prediction to be true. All right, so we're down to survey versus observational study. And I saw some people saying survey, some saying observational study. Someone who said observational study, tell me why.
Well, I mean, they are asking what they said, but they aren't directly going, hey, did you watch this on TV? Did you get this much?
Okay, so they're not directly going to the children to ask them a question, right? But what makes an observational study observational? When they observe, they gather data, they are directly observing, right? They're not directly asking questions, but they are directly observing those things. So I have to ask, are the researchers going and observing the amount of time children are watching TV?
Nope.
Nope. And so this was a slightly trickier one, which is why I'm bringing this up. We want to recognize that they're not directly observing what happens, but they are asking questions to collect that data. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because the researchers are asking questions, it would actually be a sample survey. Yep. Okay. So this would be a sample survey for this case because they're asking questions. They're not directly observing anything. They're not manipulating an independent variable. Okay. Alright. The next thing is a lot of students still struggle a little bit with separating the population versus the sample. What is the population? Not in this case, just in general, what do we mean by population?
The big group. Kids.
Okay, so the kids, but I'm asking in general, when we say population, what do I mean?
Oh, in general?
Okay, so again, not for this particular question, just in general, when I am talking about a population, what do we mean by population, Madison?
The big group.
The big group, right? It's the big group that you want to make a prediction about. That's the population. The big group you want to make a prediction about versus the sample would be what? The specific group from whom you collect
Data.
data. There we go, right? So that's what you got to keep in mind. That's just how I say it. That's how I say it. All right. But yeah, we're looking at the big group who we want to make a prediction about versus the small group that we actually get data from. So even right here, I will point out, could this be a population or would this be a sample? Sample. Because that's who we actually get data from, right?
So it's a sample survey?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, let me clarify. You will have samples and populations in every type of study. Okay? But this is a sample survey. We're directly asking questions. But,
I knew that.
okay. So the sample is who we actually get data from. But is even that the sample in this case? Why not? And this is why you want to identify the population first. Look at what the population is. Who are we trying to make a prediction about?
Children.
Children in a particular school district. If I'm trying to make a prediction about the children in a particular school district, this can't be my sample. The sample would be the children who go to those pediatricians.
True.
All right? This is why you want to identify what's the population. Who's the group of people I'm making a prediction about? Once you understand or know that, it's easy to recognize, okay, this can't be my sample. That would be my, that I would get my sample from those 15. Okay, so they're associated with the sample, but the sample is those 15 or the children at those 15 pediatricians. What are your questions, comments, or concerns through this point? We'll talk about characteristic of interest in a second, but I did want to cover one of these. One, it reduces homework load and helps make sure that you're getting your answers right. All right, so we talked about type of study, we talked about population, we talked about sample, all that stuff.
Are we grading this for right or wrong?
I will be collecting it.
Oh, I'm gonna need a new sheet.
Why?
She basically saying I'll go wrong.
Just
That's not what I'm saying.
I would make a note that these are wrong, and I would say instead of erasing it, leave the incorrect answers on there, get a notebook, sheet of paper, and turn them both in, because you actually want a record of your mistakes so that you can learn from mistakes. Mistakes are not a bad thing. You grow and you learn from them, okay?
Amen.
Okay, characteristic of interest. What is that? That is the,
Records of the pediatricians.
well, just in general. Sorry, I want to go general and then look at this specific case. It's the information you're trying to find, right?
My bad.
No, you're good. I didn't clarify. That was unclear on my part. So it's the information we're trying to find. So what is the information we're trying to find?
Which one? See?
First C,
If there's a link,
Direct answer.
if there's a
TV
link,
affects that too.
right? The amount of time children are watching TV and if they are obese or not, right? Notice, we can't say that it's causing obesity, but we are trying to see, is there a connection, is there a link between those two things, right? So, that is what we would be looking at. That's the information we're trying to collect. And Emma, we would be getting that information from the records, right? So we would need the records, but we'd be getting the information from, we'd be getting records for that information. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
820. Okay. Isn't that, that's very wrong. I need to fix that.
True.
Very, very wrong. Okay. I will point out, yeah, I'll leave the rest of these. So don't forget those details about what makes it observational versus what makes it experimental versus what makes it a sample survey. One of the things I realized later to clarify, right, sample surveys are when you're asking questions, observational directly to somebody. Those observational studies are literally where you're observing what's happening, and the experiments, those researchers are manipulating your independent variables. Okay? And again, don't forget, this is not going to be a super major grade. This is to help you be prepared for an understanding check on Friday. That's the biggest reason why we're doing this.
As in like a quiz.
It's a little bit different. I'll explain more about why. But yes, we've been in school for a week and a half by Friday, right? We've been learning this stuff for about a week by Friday, and we're on a block system. So like on a period system, that'd be 2 weeks, right? Please understand, my quizzes are not normal quizzes. I've talked about this in the past. I call it an understanding check because it literally is a check on your understanding, and I will give you feedback on what you understand well and what you don't, and use that feedback so that on the test you do better, because if you do better on the test, I'll replace your understanding check grade. So if you made a 20% on the understanding check, but on those same concepts on the test you made an 80%, you'll have an 80 on the understanding check. If you make a 70 on the understanding check, but the same concepts make a 95 on the test, that 95 will replace your 70, right?
So you get 295.
No.
Well, yeah, you have a 95 on the test and you have a 95 on the understanding check.
I ain't playing that one.
So, again,
What if you do
what I
both?
care about is your learning and your growth. So, learn from your mistakes, get better, and you're going to be golden in my class. Yes?
What if you do good on the understanding check and bad on the test?
Well, I'm not going to drop your understanding check
I
grade.
bet. I bet.
Okay. One of the reasons why I also gave you C just now is I also want you to do this vocab section. Vocabulary is very important for statistics. All this is matching each definition to its corresponding term. Have that done before tomorrow. Okay? That will not take too long, but you'll need to go through that lesson and identify those different things. I didn't say that yesterday, but I was looking through and I realized this would be very helpful for you to get the talk done.
Alright, when you offer tutoring?
Tutoring?
Yes.
Monday and Wednesday afternoons and Tuesday and Friday mornings.
What day is it?
Wednesday.
Oh, never mind, I got practice.
You got Raiders?
Gotcha. This afternoon I have a meeting anyway, so I couldn't do this afternoon, but I could do one tomorrow afternoon, and I'll be here Friday morning. Yes,
I got
Alicia.
practice after school.
I'll be here Friday morning.
I'll be, got you.
And we only doing that top section, right?
Say again.
We only doing that top section, right?
You're doing,
Just that section?
let me check to see if there's anything. No, you should be able to do all 9 of these. Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm saying like that whole, just that whole
Yeah,
box.
just that section. You're not doing all the other problems, you're just doing those 9 vocab terms.
Are we doing it now?
Say again. We doing it right now? No, we got stuff to learn. Alright, so agenda. As a quick reminder, what is math?
A language of patterns and relationships.
For those patterns and relationships that we're studying, right? Again, I know we're on mathematical science, that statistics idea things, but
Teachers and substitute teachers, this is just a reminder that we are doing the 10th grade pictures now. They started according to
it
their
is
last name.
8:24 if you go to take a picture.
7:55, and they should
Okay,
go on through.
so what is math? Yes, ma'am.
What time are we going?
You have, it depends on your last name. If you're in 10th
We didn't
grade,
know this.
I think there's a.
Yes, today.
Last name Kaufman, right?
Yeah.
You go right now.
I'm a T.
What other 10th graders do I have here? What's your last name? Alright, they'll be back. Come on.
I'm getting dressed for that picture.
Alright, so,
I'm a junior.
any other 10th graders in here?
I'm
They just all go at the
mad.
same time? Alright.
I could sleep here. Look at y'all.
Guys, we got stuff to learn. Come on, focus. So, study patterns and relationships. We'll cover these ideas more moving forward. I'm going to do again a quick active collaboration scores. They were much stronger yesterday, much better conversations during whole class discussion within your small groups. And I want to encourage you on that, but I do want to point a couple things out. We're going to finish up representative samples, and we'll get to the random sampling. Let me actually do a poll really quickly before I forget. I almost forgot this. Start this poll. So I got all 5 of those songs prepared.
Which one is that?
Just running up that hill.
You finna put that?
Yes!
They need to come on from the scene though. I ain't even looking.
What?
They need to come on.
They are. They're working on it right now. No.
I'm ready.
They said this would be the last season.
There was a C.
They said that season 5 will be the last season because they're getting so old.
Stranger Things to try.
I got 12, 14 out of more than 14 students. Come on. We're just selecting one. Alright.
Who's putting This Is America?
I'm so sick of looking.
Okay, be quiet. That song is still goaded.
Alright. I think that's everybody. So let's start going. We're going to do running up that hill for this class. Alright,
Yes.
so let me go ahead and print. Or start the printing of that. How many students we have in here?
23.
But not today, we're missing a few. How many are we missing? Just 2, so 21?
21. Oh. That's my best friend.
I knew I was sure. I was like, that was something.
And you have Hosa with me.
Right.
I got first, second, and
Okay, while that's printing, let's go back to this. So here is active collaboration rubric. Everyone yesterday, I think, was at a 3 or better, maybe even a 3.5 or better. One of the things I want to point out is this. A lot of us were at that 4 level, which is awesome. Remember, at the 4 level, you have to be doing at least 2 of the following. I need you to be talking, right? Either actively sharing thoughts or asking questions and taking notes. The taking notes is usually the one that's easy, but you got to hit one of those 2 during whole class discussion to get to a 3.5. To get to the 4 beyond that, right? You have to be talking with each other and helping each other grow and learn. Even when there's struggles, we try to figure things out together. To get to that 4.5, you have to be doing all three of these things. I have a little bit more detail there, but you're actively sharing your thoughts and discoveries. What did you notice and what did you wonder? You have to be asking questions both in general and of other students' ideas, pushing for greater understanding. Notice the difference is, hey, Mr. Kinney, I have this question, or versus, I heard someone say this, and I want to push back on it. Why are you thinking this way? Because I thought blank, right? So after a student says a statement, a lot of times they'll say, hey, does anybody want to push back on that? Or does anyone want to add on, right? That pushback is important, and we want to word it that way, where we're helping each other grow and learn. It's the idea that as iron sharpens iron, one friend sharpens another. And so we're going to push on each other and help each other get better. Within the small groups, again, it's going to be very rare to get to a 5, honestly. In a 5, you're doing everything at the engaged level, but you're going beyond that. You're not working 100% of the time, right? Notice it has to be at least 75% of class for engaged. It doesn't have to be 100 to be at a 5, but it needs to be consistent. But the big thing is that you're showing clear leadership within the group, engaging all to push for greater learning. If you're the one pushing for everyone to be involved, you notice, hey, maybe Brantley's not talking as much or Devlin's not talking as much. You make a statement, okay, so Devlin, what do you think about this, right? And so you're making sure that he gets involved on that conversation. You gotta show that leadership to get there. And these students are going to be the ones who learn the most. But again, what is the average that you need in order to earn 100 each week? Only a 4, right? A 4 engaged is really where you want to be, but that 4.5 and that 5 can be huge. That's where you're going to grow the most. So, questions, comments, concerns before I continue? I'm moving really fast, but it's just a quick recap. Okay. We've been identifying statistical versus non-statistical questions. A couple of questions on your understanding check will be on that, so make sure you understand those differences. We also categorical and numerical data. You have to be able to identify population, sample, characteristic of interest in a study, differentiate surveys, observational studies, and experiments. That's why I have you doing the talk the talk. Those are major things that will be on the understanding check. Pay attention to the objectives. Right? Yes, ma'am. How about this? I'll post the slides on the Schoology. I've been meaning to update those anyways. Re-download it. Okay? So, I will also say, if you look at the very beginning of this lesson, on page M5-65, if you look at those learning goals, I believe that a lot of that is right there in the learning goals. The only thing that's not there is population, characteristic of interest, and sample, but we've been covering that very heavily, so you gotta know what those things are. So again, statistics, at its core, is representing and analyzing data. What we're focused on right now is how to collect accurate data, because you don't want to collect data from every single person at Hillcrest High School. You can't collect data from everyone in the United States, but if we learn how to sample well, we can get a sample that is what of the population?
Accurate.
But the statistical term is what?
Representative.
Representative, right? We want it to be representative. We don't want the sample to be biased, right? We want a representative sample. We don't want that sample to be biased. And that's why today's lesson is huge and really important. So we already got through this a little bit, talked about this. So we are actually starting on the very next lesson. You can go ahead and flip over to page, I should have made notes about this and I didn't. 77? Yeah, page 77, thank you. So we're going to learn how to collect samples, right? We're going to explain why samples collected with any other means than randomization will not be representative of a population. And you're going to learn how to randomly sample using technology or a random digit table. So, I think you can already tell, we talked about in the last lesson, what's going to be really important for collecting a representative sample. What word is up there that shows up multiple times?
Randomly.
Random, right? And that does not mean that, well, I'll say that in a second. We need randomization, we need random sampling to collect representative samples. And so notice your learning goals up here. I will say this. These terms right here, we're not going to cover. We're only going to look at what's called a simple random sample. And that's because time is a factor. And if you really want to go into more of those details, I would love to have you in an AP Stats class next year. We go into all that stuff. And so this is actually setting everybody up well if you take AP Stats next year. And also just, hey, this is useful in everyday life. But I do want to point this out, right? We're going to use data from samples to estimate a population mean. That's the biggest thing. I want to take my sample and I want to make a prediction about the population. So, right here, the book is set up to do circles. Go ahead and just cross through where it says circles, or circle time, and we're going to put running up that hill. Hill version, alright? So we're essentially going to do exactly the same stuff, but we are going to do this with running up that hill. And if we're going to study running up that hill, I feel like the only fair thing to do is at least listen to the song once. Okay? Once. Okay?
God. Can you turn the air on, please?
Sure. I'm always down to turn up the air. Alright, so running up that hill. I'm going to do Stranger Things version because I thought the Stranger Things version was better.
The
Stranger Things.
I'm taking version.
They're doing for birds.
Yeah, they did not do it exactly the same as Kate Bush did.
Yes, bro. The same night over.
Dude, this is burnout.
No, it's like 3 episodes.
You're a junior, though, right? Juniors don't start until
A big second.
9:10.
She said.
You have to be. It's like 9:45.
She was too high, man. Not to worry.
Hey, don't forget Hudson's behind you.
God dang, ain't no good time.
Man, I'm having. Oh, they're
Hey, you
just
forgot
doing
to turn the
the music, aren't they?
You forgot to turn the air. That makes you want to go.
Are they doing all
Just said a remix.
I want that. I want.
I would see if this should be.
Yeah.
Just do the regular.
I may just have to do running up that hill.
Yeah, that's all he does.
Volume 2 did not eat the way volume 1 did. And I'll down that.
Just listen to a wall.
Hey, we can't hear if we're all talking. Sounds like this actually has lyrics. And you might want the song as you're listening. There's only 3 people, right?
There's 4 of us. Yeah, there's Alasia.
Maybe we'll get some lyrics. I'm about to just go to the straight Kate Bush version.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're done listening for some of us, so we'll just go ahead and stop here and actually start doing the activity with it. But for those of y'all who haven't seen Stranger Things, to explain some of this background, I believe this was a song actually from the 80s. I knew it was an actual song, but yeah, it was released in the 80s. And it's an important part to one of the characters of Stranger Things Season 4. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a really important part. And after the first episode or second episode where you really hear this song prominently, I want to say this song went from no one knowing it to jumping to the top of the charts for a couple weeks. It was wild. But we'll now do the activity part of this thing. So here's what we're doing, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to just look at, just like they have here, they say 0 through 4. What we're going to do is we're going to do words 1 through 5, right, of the song. And so I took a lot of time the last couple of days to do this for multiple songs to identify the words by a couple of lines, right? So if you look at these first 2 lines, you have words 1 through 12. And so here are words 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? Yes. The one thing I would say is you're going to do multiple samples off this one sheet. So I might use different symbols to represent that, right? So maybe I wouldn't even do the first 5. I would, because it's obviously the first 5, like I wouldn't mark it. But maybe star for some of the samples, circle other words for other samples, box words for other samples, or just use a different highlighter or color, and that will allow you to identify different things. So what I want you to do is I want you to take words 1 through 5, right? And so I want you to find the average length of those words. So find the average length of those 5 words, and we'll continue from there. Once you find the average length of those 5 words, now I want you to select a sample of 5 words, right? So we're not analyzing the circles. Select a sample of 5 words you think best represents the entire set, or the entire, let's just say, best represents all words, right? We want a representative sample. And find the average. So go ahead and complete 1 and 2. You don't have to have the same as others in your group, but I do want you to work with each other if anyone has a question.
So are we using a different set of 5 words?
So for the second question, you select 5 words that you think would represent all the words, and then you would average the number of letters in those words.
So are we highlighting them or writing under?
You can do either. Okay. So select 5 words. Identify how many letters are in each word. Average the number of letters. Does that make sense?
Just kind of
Right. You're finding the average. Finding the mean length of each of those words. Guys, that's all you're doing. You're finding the mean or the average length of each of those 5 words for the first 5, and then for the second 5 that you select. Okay?
Is apostrophes counted?
No, it's not a word.
Say again? No, it's letters only.
Yeah, so like pick
Yeah.
pick 5 words.
No, letters. Guys, you're not counting punctuation symbols, you're only counting letters.
You. About 35 to 39, okay? Calculate. What's the second step?
Well, how do we get that calculator?
Right there. 6:11 now. You have to find the meaning.
So any
Versus.
I see how often that breaks is. See how often that breaks is.
How we get to the calculation about it? You know, how we get to the calculation?
Yeah, so the one you just highlighted in that.
Alright, so how do you get to the calculation?
Which file word? What is it? For number 2, you gotta choose file word. And Mr. Kenny,
Yeah,
them 5 words can be anywhere on the paper, right?
say again.
The 5 words for number 2, they can be anywhere on the paper, right?
Yes, you select the 5 that you think would be represented. Hold on 1 second.
So once you write it next to it, these like these letters are not if you don't see the most important letter of the day, you won't have the words that you're writing.
So how did you figure out the average length of those words? You have 5 words.
How is it?
Count them?
That I was remembering how to.
Hey, how do you have a group of 3 people? You guys all-
Yeah, so you add them up.
I like
Yeah, smart.
I like this 5 by the total value check out.
You know what you're talking about.
Average is 3.2 right now. Get 3.5.
I'm really stuck around. Nobody can
We can pick whatever letter we want.
But I don't like.